BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNid88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Okay, hello everybody. Today is Monday, another Zodiac Monday. Welcome to the show. And I had some completely new material for you guys, but I guess I have to introduce the entire story. I began corresponding with someone who identified a new Zodiac killer suspect that is not very well known, and he claimed that perhaps all of the observations were original, and it was indeed a suspect that I had never encountered before, and I was going to do a whole suspect profile on this particular person, but at the very last minute, the person I've been corresponding with, who has requested to remain anonymous, decided that he did not want a suspect profile video about the person that he has been investigating. So I'm a little bit disappointed that I couldn't share that with you. So today I'm going to be doing a Zodiac Killer Q&A session instead, where I'm going to respond to your questions and comments about the Zodiac Killer. And I must reiterate that I really wanted to share some of this new material with you guys because I did a lot of detective work, and I kid thee not, and it wasn't about proving that this person was the Zodiac Killer. I was definitely leaning the other way, and I could have perhaps not completely eliminated this suspect, but provided some serious cause for doubt. But maybe I'll be able to talk to you about that in the future. And the other reason why this person is choosing to remain anonymous is his Zodiac Killer suspect is still alive, and he didn't want anything traced back to him, as well as he just wasn't ready for his material to go public, I guess. But anyway, I hope that I can tell you the full story at some point in the future, and all of those messages were exchanged via email. If anybody would like to write the show, you can write me at BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com. My email address is posted in the description box, as well as Facebook, Instagram, of course, BlackBoxNid88. You can get my contact info from the description box one more time. And you can always go over to the Teespring page and have a look at some of the merchandise. And remember, being weird is not a crime. Great way to support the show, by the way. But the first comment that we have is from Jacob W., who says, "You should read the first chapter of your novel for an episode sometime, as a teaser of sorts." I'm also the author of the book Killer on a White Horse. It's by me, Ned DeHaan, a novel murder mystery inspired by the Zodiac Manson connection. It's fictional, but who doesn't love a good mystery? And I might actually do that with something else that is going to come out later this year. I mean, firstly, Jacob, I think that's a really good idea, except Killer on a White Horse has been out for a while, but I'm hoping to release a set of shorts, like short stories, that is, later this year at some point. I wish I had an exact release date, but it's just about time constraints. There aren't enough hours in the week, but I would like to do something about that. And once that project is complete, which should have been done last year, but as I said, time constraints, once that project is complete, I can't wait to start the next one, except I'm not exactly sure which writing project I'm going to be involved with, because I was completely sold on writing my next novel, and it was going to be all about the Zodiac Killer full circle theory, but as a novel, completely change all of the places and the people. Keep the place names actually somewhat similar, but all of the names would be altered, and you'd have people trying to investigate what I call the full circle theory. The idea that the first Zodiac crime occurred in 1962, where a taxi driver was murdered, and the Zodiac's final crime was in 1969, when a taxi driver was murdered. The second crime was attacking two people with a gun and knife and pre-cut lengths of rope in 1963. The second to the last crime was the Zodiac Killer attacking people with a gun, pre-cut lengths of rope, and the Lake Berryessa stabbing, of course, is what I'm referring to. So he'll be talking about how someone is trying to create a full circle of criminal behavior and write it as a novel, so then the speculations would actually have somewhat of a justification. But I recently appeared on the Professor Dad channel, where I was talking to Drew Beeson, Thomas Henry Warren, and Ross from Planet X Filmworks. And Ross and I have also corresponded about this. Part of me really wants to write the script for a movie about the Lake Herman Road murders, but it wouldn't focus on the murders too much. It would be about the victims, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, who were the first confirmed victims of the Zodiac killer. And I would just like to write a movie, a script, a film, based on the final 2 weeks of their lives, because you have this issue where David Faraday is getting into a type of dispute with local drug dealers. You have a guy stalking Betty Lou Jensen named Ricky Barton. I like to call him Richard Ricky Blank. And then the family's even saying, oh, we got to close the gate. We don't want Ricky coming around. Not to mention just David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen are teenagers about to take on the world and all of their ambitions that they could be pondering. But there are genuine conflicts that could be explored. And then maybe even the Zodiac killer could definitely be tied in. But I wouldn't want the Zodiac to be the focus of it. I would want David and Betty Lou to be the focus of it. But there's even something else that has been on my mind that I've been thinking about for a writing project, and that is the disappearance of Donna Lass. Last year, I did a multi-part series on the disappearance of Donna Lass, who disappeared from the Sahara Tahoe Hotel and Casino in 1970. She has never been seen since, and part of me just wants to expand upon that. I really feel that my work on the Donna Lass case is unfinished. Number one, the mystery has not been solved. Number two, I can't even begin to tell you, okay, here's what I think happened. Nope, I'm just as clueless as I was at the beginning, and I definitely lean away from the Zodiac killer connection, but even after doing numerous episodes on the disappearance of Donna Lass, as well as some very similar crimes that occurred in the Lake Tahoe area, I still wish that I had more answers for you. So, and even though I am always in West Virginia, in spirit, I'm actually coming to you from Nevada this week, and I will be for the next couple weeks. I'm on the road, and I'm really hoping to make it to State Line, Nevada, and see what I can uncover on the ground there. It's a little bit far from me now, but definitely at some point this year, I hope to visit the sites and try to just learn as much as I can about the Tahoe region and about Donna Lass. So that might turn into something. So, yeah, there definitely could be some types of teasers or promos for the new book, the short stories, that is. And then which writing project to go with, the Full Circle Theory, or the Lake Herman Road story, or the Donna Lass case. I'm not sure. We're just going to see how things play out. But I always appreciate you guys following along with these discussions here about the Zodiac Killer, but also about any other subject on this channel, and as always, you can like and subscribe. Okay, and on to our next question. We have one from Daniel Webster on the episode The Unabomber Secret Zodiac Manson and the Jean Bonnet Case. I believe that was a True Crime Talk radio episode. Daniel Webster says, although I suspect Don Chaney, I believe more strongly that the Zodiac is someone totally above suspicion. Never suspected otherwise, they would be able to tie someone to the crime. The Zodiac is only a handful, so the Zodiac is one of only a handful where the murderer is not listed in the suspect list. In most of them, the murderer is somewhere there. I think they said 95% of them. I mean, that's a little bit difficult to get the meaning of that question, but there is one thing that I truly did understand from Daniel Webster. He thinks that it's going to be a suspect who's totally off the radar. And when I was on the Nancy Drew channel once, I heard a very profound statement that if you're going to look for a suspect that's off the radar, you have to look in places that are off the radar. And as I said, somebody has their own narrative about this suspect that I couldn't talk to you about yet. All I will share about him with you, the suspect that is that he is a scientist, and as I said, currently alive. But on the Nancy Drew channel, that guy even proposed John L. Johnson, who was a custodian at one of the high schools in Vallejo at the time, and he said that very statement, that if you're going to think that it's a suspect who's off the radar that the police haven't looked at, then you got to look at places where they weren't looking. And the Nancy Drew channel started out that way, but then he went on to accuse both Gary Post of being the Zodiac Killer for a time, and then Rodney Hamlin, who was Gary Post's business partner. I have episodes about both of those guys on the channel as Zodiac Killer suspects. Rodney Hamlin is a suspect who resembles a lot of the witness statements and the composite drawings in some of his pictures, but I think the photos where he most closely resembles the composite is the one from 1960. I'm pretty sure it's 1960. I'm not 100%, but I believe it's the one that was taken at his wedding, which occurred in 1960, so that's kind of how I connected the dot myself there. I'm just being clear, but that would mean that these older photos I don't think resemble the witness descriptions that closely. But we have a comment from Sandy Kimberlin who says something about Gareth Penn. Before I read the comment, I would like to point out that Gareth Penn was the author of the book Time 17, which came out in 1987, and Gareth Penn accused his suspect, Michael Henry O'Hare, of being the Zodiac Killer. And Sandy Kimberlin says, why would Gareth Penn accuse a college professor of being the Zodiac? Michael O'Hare of being the Zodiac. Okay, so I think the easiest way for me to respond to that is Gareth Penn thought that people were looking in the wrong place for the Zodiac Killer, and he thought that it wasn't just some criminal lowlife, it wasn't just some guy who got busted for shoplifting a bunch of times in his teen years and maybe did a couple of years in prison, or just somebody with an extensive criminal record, or maybe even somebody like Arthur Lee Allen, who was a very, very despicable person involved with all types of other types of crime, such as like his sex offenses and so on. Instead, what Gareth Penn was talking about is the Zodiac Killer is someone who is very well educated, even to the PhD level, someone who also has a very high understanding of mathematics and particularly angles. And Michael O'Hare was in architecture, and a lot of his academic work has been focused on public policy, and he definitely would have had familiarity with a lot of the subjects in the Zodiac world, particularly, though, the angles is what Gareth Penn wanted to zone in on. The problem is, though, Gareth Penn seemed to have made some observations about the case, but then he just went off the rails in his book, Time 17, talking about how, hey, if you mess around with binary and Morse code and you can convert letters into numbers and all of these things that are mathematical signatures that are hidden in the Zodiac case, and I wish I was the origin of this statement, but I am not. I heard it from Richard Grinnell just here in the comments section on BlackBoxOnlineRadio, and Richard Grinnell said, Gareth Penn even saw Morse code, radians, and binary in his cornflakes. And it's true. I mean, okay, it's not literally true, but he saw them everywhere. I mean, maybe he did see them in his cornflakes, but if you were to ask him about it, he probably would tell you the Morse code and binary significance of that. So he really took it to the extreme, and it's a little bit difficult. But Sandy Kimberlin has a second comment, and these both came in on the episode Gareth Penn and the Murder of Nikki Benedict. And Sandy Kimberlin says, I felt a few other suspects. Jim Phillips Crabtree, Gareth Penn, and Paul Avery. Aha, Sandy, I'll turn it back to you. If you think that Michael O'Hare should not be the Zodiac Killer, or you're just going to ask the question, why accuse Michael O'Hare of being the Zodiac Killer? I will ask you, why accuse Gareth Penn of being the Zodiac Killer? Jim Phillips Crabtree, Gareth Penn, and Paul Avery. Now, Paul Avery, he was, of course, the reporter for the Chronicle. Was he actually the person who committed the Zodiac murders in 1968 and 69, as well as I said, maybe as early as 1962, as late as 1970, it may be as late as 1986, we don't know. Paul Avery, no, I don't think Paul Avery was the Zodiac Killer. Did he manipulate the media coverage around the Zodiac Killer? Abso-frickin-lutely, and I don't even think that's a controversial statement. Now, Jim Phillips Crabtree, you proposed him as a suspect. Jim Phillips Crabtree was the ex-husband of Darlene Ferrin, the woman who was murdered by the Zodiac Killer on July 4th of 1969 at the Blue Rock Springs shooting, and in that case, that specific example, Jim Phillips Crabtree is indeed a Zodiac Killer suspect for that one crime. And some people have also talked about some alternative theories that Jim Phillips Crabtree was Sandy, the man who murdered Vern Smith on June 3rd of 1963, and then went on to possibly, allegedly, murdering Robert Domingos and Linda Edwards on June 4th of 1963, and then went on to murder Darlene Ferrin on July 4th of 1969. Now, a lot of this is because Jim Phillips Crabtree has a definitive connection to Darlene Ferrin, being her ex-husband. Did he actually do it? I don't really have a whole lot to share about that, because I think that just because he had a connection to Darlene does not mean that he was the trigger man, and I'm not seeing anything other than that. And I think there are a lot of speculative ways to connect Jim Phillips Crabtree to the Zodiac Killer mystery, but I am just not convinced. So, this came in on our recent episode about the book Soul Survivor, the reincarnation of James Leininger and the ghost inside my child, and it is from Batman66, who says, was the Zodiac Killer... Oh, I totally butchered that one. It was Jack the Ripper reincarnated as the Zodiac Killer. I'm sorry for ruining your excellent comment, Batman66. I'll read it one more time. Was Jack the Ripper reincarnated as the Zodiac Killer? Well, of course I don't think so, but I definitely believe the Zodiac Killer was learning from Jack the Ripper, trying to copy, imitate, and emulate from Jack the Ripper, and I've said it many times, I think the Zodiac Killer is a cheap 20th century Jack the Ripper knockoff. Whether it's the writing the taunting messages, or mailing in things like the piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt, which I propose was paying homage to Jack the Ripper. On October 11th of 1969, Paul Stein was murdered by the Zodiac Killer. He is the final confirmed victim. He was a taxi driver who was shot in Presidio Heights, and the Zodiac mailed in a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt. Different pieces and different letters. At least 3 letters contained a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt to prove that he had committed the crime. And I think that that was paying homage to Jack the Ripper, the famous story about mailing in the kidney of Catherine Eddowes. And, of course, the Zodiac Killer didn't want to cut out Paul Stein's kidney, it would be impractical, but it was possible to mail in a piece of his bloody shirt. But yes, the Zodiac is a 20th century Jack the Ripper. Okay, he didn't mutilate the victims. Okay, he didn't only target women or only target sex workers, but the Zodiac was definitely thinking along the same lines when it came to taunting the authorities, as well as creating a 3-way relationship among the media, the investigators, and the killer himself. So, good observation. And Batman66 has another comment. This one came in on the episode The Zodiac Killer vs. D.B. Cooper Psychological Breakdown. D.B. Cooper was smooth like James Bond. The Zodiac was more like Columbo. Okay, now, as far as D.B. Cooper being smooth like James Bond, perhaps. I mean, he's definitely closer than the Zodiac was. Somebody who holds up a plane and gets $200,000 in ransom money and then just parachutes out of it, never to be seen again. Oh, yes, I mean, that's definitely closer to James Bond than the Zodiac, but the Zodiac was more like Columbo. The Zodiac was somebody who snuck up on teenagers at Lake Herman Road, fired some gunshots, and ran away. The Zodiac snuck up on Mike Mageau and Darlene Ferrin on the 4th of July, 1969, fired some gunshots and ran away. And also, the Zodiac didn't stab Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard at Lake Berryessa until they were tied up and they couldn't defend themselves. The Zodiac blindsided Paul Stein on October 11th of 1969, so he's only attacking people who can't fight back. The Zodiac was a total coward in that respect. And our next comment comes to us from NPC Porky, who says, Hi there, in case you and or the viewers didn't know, YouTuber Gavin Fish from Gavin Fish True Crime has been making a series of videos to commemorate the 1-year discovery of the solution to the 340 cipher. Many of them are about unsolved cases where he addresses the possibility of Zodiac being involved, just as it was addressed by others in the Zodiac community. Oh, absolutely, I have numerous episodes on possible crimes where the Zodiac could have been involved. I mean, NPC Porky is right, lots of us have paid attention to that. I already cited one, Gareth Penn and the murder of Nikki Benedict. I also have an entire playlist here on this channel about possible Zodiac crimes, including Michael O'Hare and the murder of Joan Webster, the suspect that I was talking about previously, Gareth Penn's suspect, nonetheless, who Gareth Penn also accused Michael O'Hare of committing the 1981 murder of Joan Webster in Massachusetts. I really do think that a more appropriate title for Time 17 would have been the Massachusetts Connection, or like the Zodiac Massachusetts Connection, of course, but I suppose that is a little bit too soon. I mean, his book came out definitely before we had the Zodiac Manson connection and the Montana connection, and so on. So the phraseology was not the same. But about commemorating the year of the 340 cipher, I know that there aren't enough hours in the day, and I can't even get back to writing anything at all. But when I started Black Box Online Radio, I didn't know that I was going to be talking about the Zodiac Killer so much. I knew that I wanted to do something about the Zodiac because back in 2011, I read about the suspect profiles on ZodiacKiller.com just the way that a lot of people do. And I started reading about this and that and watching whatever documentary or YouTube video was available. And I even read some segments from Ray Grant's book, Zodiac Killer Solved. But I didn't know that this is what the channel was going to talk about so much. I thought that I was going to be talking about the CIA and international affairs and how the Chinese were trying to take control of the Gulf of Guinea. Yeah, I didn't. I'm not really surprised in retrospect that that stuff didn't catch on. However, if I had known that people wanted to hear about the Zodiac Killer, I thought of something that I could have done in the past. 5 years too late. Not very helpful, but I was like, why didn't I just do 1 year of Zodiac? I would have called it Zodiac 365 and just done every single day, including the holidays, do an episode about the Zodiac Killer, because on Black Box Online Radio for the longest time, this was a daily segment. It was just 20 minutes, and every day, 7 days a week, including the holidays. If I had known that I was going to be talking even about true crime as much, I would have created just a channel like that, Zodiac 365 or 365 Days of Zodiac, something to that effect. But maybe that could still happen in the future, but I definitely will want to keep things like the Anything Goes segment and the AMAs, where I can respond to your questions and comments about any particular subject, but I definitely do thank you guys for all your comments here. Now, we have a comment that came in on the episode Zodiac Killer Lawrence Gill Kane, and this was from 2019 when, oh, what's that guy's name? Was it Takashi69? I don't follow contemporary music, sorry, but he's a rapper who did some hearings, and he said that he knew the identity of the Zodiac Killer, and his name was Lawrence Gill, who was an attorney from California. And I just did a simple response to that, and I knew it was probably untrue, but we have somebody named Shart in Your Mouth. Okay, so a lot of credibility here, definitely coming from a good place. Shart in Your Mouth says, I'd wager the Zodiac was a chronic masturbator and animal felcher. I think it is safe to say he was a cross-dresser and a seat sniffer also. Chronic masturbator, though? Yeah, absolutely. I do think so, because a lot of people think that the Zodiac was someone who was an incel, an involuntary celibate, and Michael Cole, who's the author of the Zodiac Revisited trilogy, talks a lot about this, where he thinks that there's a high chance that the Zodiac was not married, that he never got married. And now, we don't know 100%, still an unsolved case, but, I mean, those are things that Michael Cole has discussed with me, that it's simply that the Zodiac was driven by heterosexual animosity. Now, this whole thing about animals or cross-dressing, I don't think there's any evidence to suggest the Zodiac was a cross-dresser, but crazier things have happened. And we have a comment that came in on the episode, The Zodiac Killer versus D.B. Cooper's Psychological Breakdown, and it is from Steve Allen, who says, I'm going to officially offer David Gold $200 billion if he can prove that the Zodiac Killer and D.B. Cooper are the same person. What Steve is talking about is David Gold used to have a challenge where he stated that he had a $2,000, no, actually I think it was $10,000 bet, that if you can prove that David Gold is making up his stories and he is lying to the public, then he'll pay you $10,000. David Gold is the author of the book My Dance with the Zodiac Killer, where he looks at the suspect Frank Lee Morris, and his suspect is involved with the 1962 escape from Alcatraz. The three guys involved with the escape from Alcatraz were Frank Lee Morris and John and Clarence Anglin, and he says that they were also involved with crimes before 1962, such as the Texarkana Moonlight Murders of 1946. I believe he said it was Frank Morris who was the Phantom Killer, and in 1969, the Zodiac crimes were committed by Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers. Frank Morris would have done the 1968 Lake Herman Road shooting, as well as some other Zodiac crimes, but it was one of the Anglin brothers who committed the Lake Berryessa stabbing on September 27th of 1969, so he does it as a type of group murder theory, and then Frank Morris went on to be D.B. Cooper. This is, once again, the book My Dance with the Zodiac Killer, and I think he actually upped it to $200,000. He has a $200,000 claim that if you can prove that he is making up any of his stories, then he will give you $200,000. But Steve Allen says he'll give David Gold $200 billion if he can prove it. But David Gold openly responded to my channel saying that I miscategorized him. He said he's not sharing his theories about Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers and how they were the Phantom Killer and the Zodiac Killer and D.B. Cooper. He says that he actually talked to these people and they told him all of that. So, I don't know what evidence he would be able to provide other than his own testimony. And as I said on that episode that Steve was referring to, it really is quite difficult to debunk someone. Like, I mean, if I tell you that back in 1997 I met person X and he said Y and Z, well, how are you going to prove that that didn't happen, that I didn't have that conversation that was undocumented, unrecorded, and especially with someone whose whereabouts were unknown, such as Frank Morris? And our next comment comes to us from Flashcraft, who says, I remember a comedian on the Opie and Anthony show comparing the Zodiac Killer to the Joker from the DC Comics, particularly the Heath Ledger version of the Joker in The Dark Knight. And Crazy Inside Forever says, that's a funny comparison, although I'd say the Zodiac is definitely closer to the Riddler. Who knows? That may have even been his inspiration due to how starkly similar the character is to the real man. Firstly, though, I think that Heath Ledger's Joker has been the best performance in recent times. I remember when I saw the movie Joker with Joaquin Phoenix in the theater, all before COVID, mind you, and I was saying, wow, that film was just an absolute masterpiece, talking about Joaquin Phoenix. But then, later on, I decided to pull up some video clips from Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, and I was watching Heath Ledger play the Joker, just some video clips on YouTube, and then I was like, okay, Joaquin Phoenix's performance was good, but Heath Ledger's so much more intense. Every mannerism, every facial expression, just all blown out of the park. And I think, though, that the Joker is definitely smarter than the Zodiac, definitely more menacing, and also brave in a very malicious way. The Joker's a bad character. He is definitely one of the most villainous villains of all time. He commits very atrocious actions solely for committing evil actions. That's his agenda. The Zodiac Killer, as I already said very clearly, he was a coward. He may have even been somewhat of a weakling. The Joker is rather fearless. He'll punch Superman in the face even, and I do mean Superman, not Batman. He'll twist Batman around in all kinds of other ways, but no, the Joker definitely has that psychotic, twisted mind that is just well above the Zodiac, but those are just my 2 cents. And as a Flashcraft said, though, that did come from a comedian, so it's not meant to be overly scrutinized, just an interesting observation all the same. Crazy Inside Forever has another comment, though, that says, by the way, Ned, I don't know if you heard about this or not, but apparently there's a guy on YouTube that spoke to Donna Lass's sister and basically confirmed that Lass's brother made the cipher for where her body was to bring more attention to the case so more people would be aware that she's missing. If this is true, I'm inclined to believe that it confirms the suspicion that Donna Lass is not connected to the Zodiac case. Well, I didn't see that exact video or hear that exact discussion that you're talking about, but there's a very similar article that was written by Nick Pelling talking about a possible solution to the Donna Lass Code. Donna Lass disappeared on September 6, 1970, while working at the Sahara Tahoe Hotel and Casino, and on the missing person poster, there is a cipher that appears to be written in the Zodiac Killer's tradition. But in Nick Pelling's article, he stated that Howard Davis obtained the wanted poster from a family member, whom I believe was her brother, as it says in this comment here, and then Howard Davis provided it to Tom Voigt, and that it was indeed created by the family to drum up some publicity for the disappearance of Donna Lass, because they wanted to find out what happened to Donna, and there was this Zodiac Killer alleged connection. And I did say that I lean away from Donna Lass being involved with the Zodiac, but also the solution to the message on the wanted poster is just beware I'm stalking Donna Lass, and there might be a couple of mistakes on the part of the cryptographer, so the true message should be beware I'm stalking you, Donna Lass, and I don't think that was created by any criminal, and there's a very solid explanation as to why. Now, we have a comment from Shane on the episode Zodiac Killer Rodney Hamlin, talking about the murder of Sherry Jo Bates in 1966. Sherry Jo Bates was murdered on October 30th of that year, and I believe it's actually in December that a custodian who was working at the RCC, the Riverside City College, where Sherry Jo Bates was a student, found the desktop poem, a poem that had been written or carved onto the underside of the desktop, and the poem talks about cut clean, red spilling, oh well, blood all over her red dress, oh well, it was red anyway. Yes, I'm paraphrasing, but it's talking about how someone is either going to commit an act of murder, or my own hypothesis that it's not actually about murder. But I'm just going to read this one more time. I pulled up the desktop poem here. I don't have to mumble through some type of weird paraphrasing. It says, sick of living, unwilling to die, cut clean, if red, clean, blood spurting, dripping, spilling, all over her new dress. Oh well, it was red anyway, life draining into an uncertain death. She won't die this time. Someone'll find her. Just wait till next time. R.H. And my observations about this one have been that this is not a poem about murder, it's about self-mutilation. And Soren Korsgaard, author of America's Jack the Ripper, pointed out that it says, she won't die this time, someone will find her, just wait till next time. But if this is indeed talking about the murder of Sherry Jo Bates, this would have been discovered well after Sherry Jo Bates had already been murdered, so that wouldn't make a lot of sense. She won't die this time. But I want to read Shane's comment about the desktop poem. I think whoever wrote the desktop poem most likely did have the initials R.H. I mean, I believe he didn't really plan or think that his desktop poem would ever be found or ever be such a big deal. Signing it with his real initials wasn't a thing to him at the time. And I believe that it was even Tom Voigt who pointed out something, that the president of the RCC had RH as part of his name, and some people think that RH is not referring to the writer of the poem, but it's referring to Ramona High, which was nearby. No, Shane may have hit the nail on the head, that the person who wrote that poem actually had the initials RH, but it's just not connected to the Zodiac or Sherry Jo Bates. And we have a comment from Glenn Collins, who says that maybe the Zodiac killer was a cop, maybe the DNA is a cop's, and that he did his own investigation like the Golden State Killer did, and they don't want to have another cop come out as being the killer under their nose again. Well, it is true that the Golden State Killer was indeed a member of law enforcement, Joseph James D'Angelo, and he was part of an anti-burglary task force, and he was using his knowledge of how to prevent burglaries to actually commit burglaries. And this happens frequently because with the serial killer Roger Kibbe, who was the I-5 Strangler, he was not a member of law enforcement. He actually worked in a furniture business, but his brother was a member of law enforcement, and he would always ask very odd questions to his brother, kind of probing him for information, and his brother simply thought that it was curiosity about the way that a homicide detective would work, but he's using the information from his brother to actually murder people, to abduct women along I-5 in California, and to strangle them actually with a piece of cord used for skydiving nonetheless. Now, it's possible the Zodiac killer was a cop, but would they actually hide the DNA evidence? I'm not so sure. I think they probably want an end to this as well, all the same. Alright, and thank you so much to everybody who has listened to this Zodiac Killer Q&A session for the month of January. I really appreciate all the comments that you have shared, as well as all the questions. And if you have anything to say about the Zodiac Killer, please write it in the comment section down below. And maybe your comment will end up in a future Q&A session or the AMAs on Wednesday. And Wednesday AMA should be covering some new material. But thank you to you guys once again. And of course, one more time, you can go over to Amazon.com, look at the book Killer on a White Horse, the Teespring page, as well as writing the show at BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com. And you can also follow me on Facebook. My personal Facebook is in the description box, as well as the page Black Box Online Radio, and of course, BlackBoxNid88 on Instagram, where you can hear the bonus podcast. Okay, that's all for me now, and I will see you guys over there on Instagram for the bonus podcast indeed. Until next time.